Howdy, everybody. I recently took a trip to Grand Canyon National Park out in Arizona. I drove in on a Wednesday to the Grand Canyon. It took me about 4 hours to get from Vegas to my hotel just outside of the South Rim entrance station. I got there just in time for a sunset. My first view of the Grand Canyon was at Yavapai Point. When you first see the Grand Canyon, it's almost like you're looking at a painting or a screen that you could just reach out and touch. The sunset was beautiful, and I stayed there for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. I got there a little bit before sunset, and then I waited for the colors to deepen a little bit. That was all I did that first evening. Then I went back and got some sleep. I got going around 9 a.m. that Thursday. I was exploring the east side of the South Rim, Desert View Drive. At first, I just pulled in some of the carved out areas that don't really particularly have names. You just pull in and see the view, and I took some pictures on a few of those. The first named viewpoint that I saw was Grand View Point, and there's actually a trail right there at the viewpoint that you can go down. I went down maybe 0.1 miles because I was conserving my energy for hiking down South Kaibab and back up Bright Angel Trail the next day. But there is a nice spot right there at the start of the trail, maybe a few switchbacks down, where a rock juts out like a peninsula, and you can go out on there and take pictures from there, and it just gives you a different perspective of that particular viewpoint other than just standing up at the main viewpoint and taking pictures from there. The next stop on Desert View Drive was Moran Point, and each of these viewpoints just gives you a different perspective of the canyon. Some of them are wider views, some of them are a bit narrower and highlight certain rock features, but each one is unique, and I think it's worth stopping at each one to see which ones appeal to you the most and which ones you might want to go back and see at a sunrise or a sunset. Now, the next stop was Lipan Point, and this was actually my favorite viewpoint that I saw in the entire park. It was just such a wide view of the canyon. It was the widest view that I saw, and there's this area off to the right where there's this peninsula of rock that you can climb out on, and you can take pictures from there, and at a certain point, you could climb down even further if you step down on some rocks. I didn't do that this first time that I was at Lipan Point, but I did later in the evening when I went back for sunset. The final stop on Desert View Drive was the Desert View Watchtower. There are restrooms here. There is a little market where you can grab some food or water. I did not actually go in the watchtower itself. I just went around and looked at the viewpoints from different areas, and there was actually a really nice view of the canyon from a certain area that I enjoyed taking some pictures and videos of, but I spent maybe 30 or 45 minutes just walking around and exploring the area here. So I left the Desert View Watchtower and went right back down Desert View Drive. I ended up stopping at a trail that didn't have any signage. It was just a pull-in gravel parking lot. It led to Shoshone Point, and there were only a few cars there when I got there. It's about 2 miles round trip to Shoshone Point, a mile there, a mile back, and this was such a peaceful hike. The Grand Canyon rim can be a little bit hectic and chaotic, and a lot of cars driving around, a lot of people in certain areas, and Shoshone Point was so peaceful. The entire hike to Shoshone Point, I didn't see anybody. There was one group walking behind me that I lost view of as I hiked. At Shoshone Point itself, there was this great sense of solitude. It was so great to be able to just sit out on this rock and take in the view of the Grand Canyon. And then I went back to the visitor center where I had parked, and I had rented a bike when I was in Zion, and that was one of my favorite parts of that trip, riding a bike through the canyon. So I thought that would be a great thing to do here in the Grand Canyon, and so I did that. I went back to the visitor center. I rented a bike for a couple hours. It was like $30, and rode down a trail. I realized that most of what you're seeing when you walk down any trail on the rim of the Grand Canyon is trees. You're just seeing trees that block your view of the canyon, and then there are certain pull-in areas where you can stop and look at the view of the canyon. But that was a big difference between riding a bike in the Grand Canyon and riding a bike in Zion. In Zion, you're actually riding through the canyon. At the Grand Canyon, you're riding on the rim, so a lot of your views are blocked by trees, and it just wasn't the same experience that I had in Zion. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, but it only took like an hour and $30, so it wasn't a big deal. After this, I hopped on the shuttle to Hermit Road. You actually have to take a shuttle to the Hermit Road shuttle, right? So there's a little transfer there, and then you get on the Hermit Road shuttle. And I stopped at every point along the Hermit Road area. The views on Hermit Road were great. I thought that the views on the eastern side of the park were a little bit better, but that could have been just because they were less busy. But I did enjoy the eastern viewpoints on Desert View Drive a little bit more than the Hermit Road viewpoints. The one I chose to go back and see a sunset at was Lipan Point. I thought that it was just the widest view of the canyon that I saw, and there was this great area that I had climbed out on that I had mentioned and got some good pictures from. It's amazing how you get such different pictures a little bit before the sun sets, and then as the sun is setting, and then after the sun has gone below the horizon. So when I went to Lipan Point for sunset, I stayed there for a good hour taking pictures, going to different areas and finding different angles to try to get the best shots from. The sun is setting on one side, but the view is so wide that you still get the pinkish purplish colors on the other side of the horizon. So I thought this was just a perfect spot to get a wide variety of different views of the canyon during a sunset. I made sure to get some good sleep this night because the next morning I was waking up early to hike down the South Kaibab Trail to Phantom Ranch and then back up the Bright Angel Trail. So I woke up, I think around 3:45 a.m. is when I set my alarm for. I got to the visitor center a little after 4:30, so I missed the first shuttle, but I believe I got on the second shuttle around 4:45, and that took everybody to the South Kaibab trailhead, and there were quite a few people who were hiking it as well. It's a pretty quick descent, and I got to Ooh Point just as the sun was rising above the horizon, and I wish I had gotten there 5 or 10 minutes earlier, just before the sun went above the horizon, so that it didn't darken the photos of the canyon. Usually the best photos that I get of sunrises are when the sun is just below the horizon and it lights up the sky with different purplish or pinkish or yellowish colors. After I took 5 or 10 minutes to stop at Ooh Point, I continued down. At certain points in this hike, you almost feel like you're in a dream, or at least I did. Maybe not for people who've done it a lot, but being my first time, it felt like I was in a dream walking through this place. It does not feel like there can be a place so humongous. It feels like you're in Giant World. Skeleton Point was a great highlight of the hike, and especially with the morning sun rays coming down, it was just unbelievable. And there's so much variety walking through the canyon. The types of rock change as you descend. Skeleton Key was like some weird dreamlike Irish meadow because it was so green since it's springtime. And there's a certain point where you get to this chocolate brown type of rock. And I remember one place in particular, and I'm looking at it from a distance, and it looks like little chunks of perfectly cut chocolate just sitting on cocoa powder. And you're like, what? This has to be a dream. Am I in Dutch chocolate cocoa world or something? Where am I at? This is crazy. And it's humongous. Everything is humongous here. And then you descend even further, and it's like you're in ancient elf world with just the texture and green tinting of the rocks. And of course, when you're down at the river, there's so much plant life there. I wish I could have stayed down there even longer and just explored the area more, but really I only stayed down there for a couple hours. I explored around Phantom Ranch and then stopped, had a snack, and put on some sunscreen. The water was kind of brown, I believe, because there's so much snow melt, and that's just stirring up the sediment at the bottom, and the water in certain areas was moving so fast. It was kind of a little bit scary looking at this water moving so fast. And at a certain point, I headed back up to start on the Riverside Trail and then go back up Bright Angel. Bright Angel starts out without too much of an incline. There's going to be a little bit of an incline for your entire first mile, but really not much. And slowly it starts increasing that incline. But the bottom 3 miles or so of that Bright Angel Trail are very interesting. Bright Angel Trail is not quite as beautiful as South Kaibab, but it has a lot more plant life there toward the bottom. And when I was there, there were little waterfalls you could see in certain places. But once I got past Havasupai Gardens, which I didn't take a break at, and I should have, and I regretted this as I kept hiking. But as I got past Havasupai Gardens, the scenery became a little bit more one-dimensional. You're basically looking at the same view for the last 4.5 miles. And really, Bright Angel Trail is the quintessential view of the Grand Canyon. It's very beautiful. It's just more one-dimensional than the South Kaibab Trail. But the last 4 miles to the top were nothing but switchbacks. You're basically just going straight up the canyon. I won't underplay. This was a difficult hike. I started at 5 a.m. I got down to the river around 8 a.m. and I got to Bright Angel Trailhead around 4 p.m. But I was exhausted after I finished this. I'm very happy that I didn't throw up. I got on a shuttle, went back to the visitor center, and then I went straight to a market right across from my hotel and bought like Gatorade and this electrolyte stuff and beef jerky and dried fruit. Just I needed as much sugar as I could get in my body and sodium. This is your one chance to consume loads of sugar and your body will use every bit of it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I have plenty of footage from Zion and Redwood that I still need to put together videos for those. So feel free to stick around. Bye.